Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Ash.
You hear?
Morning.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a very short meeting, isn't it?
I believe so. I'll push the button or
Yep, we're ready to go when you're ready.
is it live now? Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome today, Wednesday the 9th of October, to the 2024 Representation Review hearing. I'd like to welcome all the elected members up there online. Thank you for attending. We'll start with apologies. We have any apologies? No apologies?
Just the one from Councillor Wilson-Collins.
Oh, sorry, we have one from Councillor Wilson-Collins. So I'll move that. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Vincent, thank you. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Passed. Can I have the confirmation of the agenda, please? I'll move that. Can I have a seconder?
I can second.
Thank you, Ash. All those in favour raise their hand and say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare? No. Okay. But before we welcome our first submitter, which is Stephen Wood, I believe. Welcome, Stephen. Just go through the protocols of the meeting. The meeting will be broadcast online via KDC YouTube channel. A reminder that each speaker has up to 5 minutes to speak and elected members have up to 5 minutes to ask questions. Please refer to the hearing deliberation guidance for elected members document, which is attached. Kelly will be keeping the time. When the speaker has 1 minute remaining, Kelly will advise 1 minute remaining. When the 5 minutes is up, she will ring the bell, and the same will apply during elected member question time. Speakers have been advised that submitters who have referred to Council's decision to disestablish the Māori ward in their submission will not be permitted to speak on this topic at the hearing. It is out of scope of the representation review consultation. Okay, have I got Stephen Wood there, please?
Just coming through now. Yes.
Welcome, Stephen. Can you hear us?
I can hear you, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Look, would you like to present your submission, please? You have 5 minutes.
All right. My name's Dr. Stephen Wood. I've moved to Kaipara 25 years ago, and I'm currently with my wife own and run the Ruai Two Waters Cafe. Now, I'm a strong believer that councillors should represent their constituents, and the two main principles I think you should take into consideration is one, that the 3 wards are a good option, and that Otamatea requires 2 at least councillors. This allows proper representation of people, and I think that's the most important thing. Now, how you do it by changing the boundaries, I've got no real interest in. I'm quite happy to know that the council workers or the staff council have made some. I've looked at the issue quite seriously, and I'm quite happy with what has been proposed. But I don't really mind if it's if the population is increased from the west or the east of Otamatea. I have no interest. I just feel that the 2 things, like I say, is that you have 2 councillors in Otamatea at least, and the 3 wards stay as they are, as in entities.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions of Stephen, please? No questions there. Councillor Vincent? Councillor Vincent?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I was just unmuting myself. And welcome, Steve.
Thank you.
I do wonder, in your thoughts about it, do you see any significance in terms of the number of elected members? So that's including the mayor, as to whether there's an even number or an odd number.
It doesn't really. I don't think it really matters if there's an even or odd number.
Okay. Oh,
Personally.
Yep. Because there's an issue around voting numbers and casting votes and stuff. That was all.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye now.
Thank you, Stephen. Further questions?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you for taking the time out to do that, Stephen. We appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem at all. Thank you very much. Cheers now.
Okay. The next submitter on my list is Nicola Baharish. Have I pronounced that correctly, Nicola?
Correct.
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you. Welcome, Nicola. You have 5 minutes. Away you go. Thank you.
Well, thanks for the chance to speak. Though I will confess that given the record of this council's decisions to date, I don't have a lot of confidence that what I say will make any difference. But this whole thing's supposed to be about fair and effective representation for the communities of interest in the Kaipara. And from my perspective with I don't feel that I have that now. And I was disappointed and frustrated reading the proposal, as to my mind, it will make the situation worse for us in the Western Ward. So I'd like to talk to two main points. First, I believe the process of this review is poor, including, I can't believe I'm not allowed to speak on a particular topic. I won't mention that particular community of interest, as apparently, to quote, I will not be permitted to, unquote. And I'd ask how this is democratic. But secondly, in terms of process, I found it hard to make a sensible submissions on the things I am allowed to submit on, because to me, the review document was quite lightweight and there was a lack of useful information provided in it. For example, it would have been relevant for me to know what percentage of ratepayers actually live in each of the 3 proposed wards. Secondly, what are the projected growth rates for each of these proposed wards? Thirdly, what are the numbers of ratepayers in each of the smaller areas which make up the larger wards, because this would have made it possible to submit sensibly on where might be fairer or more appropriate boundaries. Fourthly, what are the actual and relative areas of each of the 3 proposed wards? What are the reasons for not having community wards? What are the reasons for deciding on 3 wards and not other potential divisions or communities of interest, and were any even considered? And if I was the councillor making a decision on fair and effective representation, I'd want to know all of this and more so I could make an informed decision. So I wasn't particularly happy. And my final point on process is that having this hearing online to me is poor form, because you're excluding a significant portion of the population who don't have the means to do this. So leaving the process aside, and on the basis of the information that was provided, my second main point is that to me it seems clear that again the people of the Wairoa ward will receive the least fair and effective representation. And given to my mind that we've been poorly served now, I think this should be reconsidered. The Wairoa ward looks to me to be the largest, arguably the most diverse, and also probably the most difficult to traverse ward. And given this, I think we should have the greatest representation in terms of the lowest number of people per councillor. Instead, once again, the council appears to favour the eastern and the middle wards. To give you just a few examples of how I personally don't feel well represented now, I live out at Glenkscully. I've lived out here for the last, 25 years or so. And if I just think safety even, since July 2023, Glinks Road has had a really dangerous hole in the side of it, which cuts across the white line on the edge of the very narrow point in the road. And that hole is easily capable of destroying axles or flipping a vehicle into the stream. It's very deep and very sharp. And as I say, cuts across the white line on the road. All that's been done in all that time is to put some road cones next to it, which are constantly swallowed by the hole. So at times there's no warning. Someone's added a pointed sign to the hole, which has been there now for many months, saying, to read it politely, for F's sake, fix this. It's been there for months and months and months. That's just one example on the road. Another example out here is we had hope at one point that the council would finally pay attention to this marvellous asset that is Rapiro Beach. They put some money towards a Rapiro Beach management group. I was appointed as the representative for Glenkscully. Sadly, the whole thing proved a massive waste of time and energy, and I put hours and hours and hours into it, as did many others. It was led from the beginning by someone at a very low level at the council, had no authority to do anything. There was not effective representation of relevant groups. For example, there were 3 4-wheel drive reps. Farmers got no one, fishers got no one, and at Glinks we were allowed only one. And just when we thought we might have got somewhere with the group, the council pulled the plug on it, and all the effort proved wasted, and the money that was left went somewhere, I don't know where, but it's not being used here. And salt's rubbed into the wound every time we see something about looking after the beach environment over at Mangawhai, whether it's dune restoration or blocking illegal beach vehicle access, etc., which are all issues we have here. Not only are they not being resolved by the council, but actually council actions have contributed to the environmental degradation here over the years. So we're pretty unhappy out here. I mean, another example there is they finally appointed some freedom camping officers, but they didn't even give them a vehicle, so they were effectively useless. And we asked multiple times to meet them, and that never happened. Another example is I've been helping my parents fight issues caused by construction next to their place in Dargaville for over 3 years now. The issues were caused by a series of failures by the council, starting with council staff failing to follow their own district plan in terms of the information provided by the applicant. I've been to the CEO, who seems to think it's his job to protect his staff rather than get them to perform. And I spoke with a councillor about it, asking whether he could help or whether I need to go to court. The answer was I need to go to court. To me, it's a very sad state of affairs when a councillor suggests you take your own council to court rather than try to resolve the issue. I could go on, but at this stage I'll sign off by just saying that I think all of the issues I've raised, and there's many others, would be treated differently if I lived in the Eastern Ward. So my main submission is that at the very least, I think the largest and most diverse and most difficult to get around ward, that is Wairoa, should have a better ratio of ratepayers to councillors than is currently proposed, rather than having the least representation of any of the 3 wards. So that's my submission.
Thank you, Nicola. Is there any questions, please? Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Nicola, for your presentation. I thought it was very expansive in its approach, and it captured a lot of stuff, even though we didn't say the forbidden Maori ward phrase. So, and I'm not going to allude to that, but I do wonder, in terms of our deliberations, how much do you think we should take into account historical boundaries, such as going back to recognition of the former Hobson County, Dargaville Borough, Otamatea County areas, and looking at how we, I guess, cut and dice things?
Yeah. Look, I think the whole thing is about defining the communities of interest. And I don't think that this paper that was, the review paper actually did that in any meaningful way. And I think that would have been one of the things that would have been useful to consider, and to, provide some reasons as to why you would or wouldn't look at some of those things. But instead, as I say, I found it quite lightweight. So I think there's lots of ways to cut and dice it. There's really only one being presented. And to me, it's not good for the Wairoa ward, basically. So that's all I'd say on that. I think staff should have done a better job doing some of that analysis.
Nicola, we have 2 further questions up there, one from one from Ash Nair. So Mike, you're first.
I did
think Mark wants to carry on.
Oh, if you would permit me, Mr. Mayor, I would like just to finish with my second question.
Yeah, sorry. Carry on.
Yeah, okay, yeah, because can I just say I'd love to have a discussion with you, Nicola, about this, because there is some longer term history and stuff involved, but we can't go there at the moment. Now, my other question was just, as I asked the previous presenter, do you see any significance around, in terms of numbers of elected members, so councillors plus mayor, as to whether that comes to an even or an odd number for the sake of clarity and making decisions?
Look, I think it's a good question, Mark, and I confess I hadn't actually thought about it till you raised it with the previous speaker. And because I haven't really thought about it, I'm hesitant to make any comment other than it is difficult on committees when there is an even number to actually, sort things out when there's a division of views. So I do think it is something that is worthy of some consideration. And again, it would have been useful to include that in the representation review documentation as to pros and cons around that. Yeah, so I think it's a good question. I don't have an answer for you, sorry.
Okay, right. We're bound by the constraints of the legislation, which is
Yep.
why it's over, once overlooked.
Yeah.
I'm going beyond my scope there. Thank you. I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Mike Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Nicola. I actually have some sympathy for what you say about the Wairau ward in terms of the expansiveness. I think that, you know, from north to south, it spans about 250 k's, but you know, 25 times more than we have over on the east side. So, you know, it does bring in things. And I think that if I recall correctly, when this whole matter was originally brought to us, I did personally raise whether there was a need to have a more central ward added over that site. That would not have necessarily added another representative, though. So I think that whilst I understand where you're going from, we were originally given 8 options. I think it was that, and we worked down, and by means, and by means of deduction, I think, you know, we came down to the 2 that there are now for consideration. So I think that the other point is interesting. On those issues, again, I sympathise with those issues that you've raised for your area. Maybe it is that the Mangawhai Kaiwaka area is smaller and
Excuse me, Mike. Mike, you're supposed to be asking a question.
Okay, look, I was asking, the question I was going to ask was along the lines of, have you written actually to represent elected members about these matters? I know that you said that you'd spoken with the CEO. That's the process that we find that works over this site. So writing to elected members and encouraging members of the public to write to ourselves and to the council is a way we've found of getting resolution.
At various times on various matters, I have written. We've had representatives turn out here, for example, with the Glinks turn up at our annual general meeting of our little community group out here, but nothing happens. So we haven't found that particularly satisfactory.
Okay.
So yes, I have at times. I haven't. It hasn't necessarily helped. Yeah. And I haven't found going to the CEO effective either.
Okay.
Councillor Nair.
Comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nicola, thank you for coming, and you are actually very as vocal as well as knowledgeable in terms of Kaipara, and I adore your efforts. Just a question I have in terms of the efficiency or efficacy of the councillors, because I remember you did come to us, you did go to mayor, you did go to CEO. Would you recommend that all councillors should be elected at large rather than represent, because they're ineffective anyway? Just look at the merits of the people and they say whether actually they can achieve something. What are your views on that?
Yeah, no, I my gut reaction is I don't like the idea of electing everybody at large, Ash. I think there's a risk that that the Wairau Ward would have even less effective representation. So I think we do need people who live in the area, who have some local knowledge. It gives us the best chance, I think, of having fair and effective representation of communities of interest out here. I just don't think the current proposal gives us enough of that. You know, if I think even of, you know, one of the issues I wrote to councillors about which is, it sounds like a simple issue, but culverts, right, out here. We have 3 along Marine Drive. They constantly flood. There used to be a good preventative maintenance regime. Preventative maintenance is by far the most cost-effective way of running that thing. Instead, now the council's approach seems to be about wait till things fail. So the fix is massive. It's more expensive. It used to be very simple. They'd bring a little digger out here a couple of times a year, just clear all the culverts before anything happened. As a result of the blockages here, which were reported, say, before Cyclone Gabrielle, one of my neighbours' hole downstairs was flooded because the thing had to give somewhere and it gave up behind her house. We had to fix it. We had to get a digger out here and fix it. We've had no luck getting the council to even think about something as basic as that preventative maintenance. 2 of them are really blocked again at the moment. They've been reported multiple times. Nothing is happening. When it rains, it floods down the road, so it erodes the road, which is already in poor condition. So it's just really basic stuff for me we can't get. And that's despite, I mean, I know I wrote to you at the time, Ash, we didn't get any joy. So we just got, culverts are a priority for us. That didn't help us. So that's kind of where I'm at. So people out here are really reluctant to even, they're hesitant to even bother approaching until they get really, really frustrated and angry, which is not a good way to do things because we just we don't feel that we get good service out here. So it may sound like I'm having a whinge, but there's been a long history. We've tried all sorts of approaches. We've tried all sorts of gathering of data, collecting it, presenting it, doing all that sort of stuff, but nothing's really changed. So that's just where I'm at. If that makes sense. So I'm not going to stop. We keep going, but I'm and like the issue with my parents, over 3 years, they shouldn't have had to suffer the damage they're suffering, and we just can't get any joy. And I will go to court if I have to. So
just a corollary to that, sorry, Mr. Mayor, clarifying. So I'm on the same page. I did raise this issue with the SLEP a long time ago in a public meeting. Do you recommend, rather than, because whatever you get, whether local councillor or at large, the issues are not with the councillor so much because they do make the effort. The issue is that
Are you asking a question there, please, Ash?
Yes, sir. So my question is, how would you recommend that having a better system of a work program which is public, that these things are going to happen and it's not lying in the secret coffers of the council, what they're actually going to do and when they are going to do? Would it be more sensible that the people are aware when things are happening?
Oh, better communication would help. I mean, I can give you a whole lot of information about problems with that, but we're just frustrated out here.
Thank you, Nicola. So questions in relation to representation review. Have you got a question there, Councillor Lambeth?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Nicola. You mentioned...
Hi, Gordon.
Hi. You mentioned the fact about community boards. And I know this this particular representational review is not covering off that. Do you feel that you would be better served by that with more strength? And if you did, would you promote them? And the third part of that question is, would you expect if there were community boards introduced, then there'd be a reduction in councillors? Because we can't support a massive structure with the amount of ratepayers we've got. But could you answer that, thanks?
Yeah, look, the comment about community boards was really about the lack of information provided on why not having them. I'm not particularly an advocate of them. My mother was a community board rep for a while, and they have no authority in any meaningful way. It's just a sort of a desperation thing, saying maybe we would get a better hearing if there were one that directly represented this community out here. That's really all I'm saying, Gordon. It's I'm not. And if you did have them, I think you should reduce the number of councillors. That may help Mark with the odd versus even situation. But I know that they have very limited authority, and they can be a waste of time. As I say, it's more there's a hint of desperation in the suggestion.
Thank you, Nicola. Doesn't seem to be any further questions. I thank you for your submission. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good luck with your deliberations.
Okay, what do we move to now? I see we've got a vote here for the receiving the submissions.
We can do that. So, because we've heard the submission, so if we receive the,
Okay, so we need to have a motion here that the Kaipara District Council receives the 62 submissions on the 224 representation review, initial proposal, and B, hears submitters who wish to be heard. So I'll move that. Can I have a second, please?
I can.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favour, raise their hand, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried.
Abstention.
Abstention from councillor Paniora. Okay. I close the meeting.
yeah, it's the speakers.
Okay, that's the end of the speakers and the end of the process here today. Thank you very much for your attendance, and I close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. See ya.
Thank you.